All right. Thank you, Colleen. As she said, I'm Darren Turner. Been at Greenfield Central since July of last year. So I actually got in for the full year this time. And actually starting in July helped a little bit and got all the training in before school started. So I didn't have to worry about that part. It was just everything else. So we're going to talk about key relationships, ideas on classroom management and career association. Again, being new with this, we're all kind of in the same boat. And here's a little bit more about me. Before I started with JAG, I was at Greenfield Central for the past 5 years before. So had a little head start with knowing individuals at the school. And before that, I had a 30-year career in Boys and Girls Clubs. That's my background as nonprofit. I was executive director for 10 years at the club here in Hancock County. I'm a 92 grad of University of Indianapolis, and I'm actually an 88 grad of Greenfield Central. And then my wife and I have one daughter who graduated IUPUI this past May, and I just found out is pregnant, so I'm gonna be a grandpa. I'm not sure if I've hit the excitement stage on that one yet. As in the picture, you can see she's holding 2 of our little dogs, Jasper and Bella. Then my hobbies are movies, puzzle books. I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan, so that's a little bit about me. So as we go through this today, and I'm sure most of you have already kind of thought about this as you went along this year, how can you use your skill sets from your previous positions and your previous life experience to assist you with being a JAG specialist? I know that has come in handy for many things that I've done. So just consider that as we go through this presentation, and we can talk a little bit more about it at the end. And if you want, put in the chat box when you actually started with JAG as a JAG specialist. Just kind of curious to see how many made it for the full year, how many made it a semester, or how many just recently started. So again, we're going to talk about relationship building with Work One, school, community, classroom, career association management, and scheduling. That's where we'll spend the majority of the time, and then some follow-up information. And then if anybody's got questions or just needs to talk about some things, have some comments, we can have time to chat at the end. And by no means am I anything close to an expert on any of this. This is just how, going through this year, this is what I have found out through all these areas to be the most important things for me. When you're talking about relationship building with your local Work One, school, and community, you know, with Work One, you really need to get to know all the office staff. I'm fortunate that I actually work in Greenfield, and that is where our regional office is. And all our staff is in that one office, as well as the MIS staff. So that's a big advantage for me. I know some places have Work One staff in different sites, but take the time, make sure you get to an office, you go talk to them, whether it's just to sit and chat, find out what they do. Every one of them can help you in different ways throughout the year with different projects, as guest speakers, you know, whatever. The MIS staff we'll talk about when we get to the actual application, but they can be a big help to you at that point in time, especially when we start working on JAG application. Same thing with the JAG state staff. you know, not that you'll actually, well, I guess next week we'll get to actually get to see them in person, but get to know them a little bit. Because if you haven't, you will be sending emails to them asking for different items, different copies of things. So they're always very helpful and willing to do what they can to get us the information we need. As far as the school, to me, the key relationship that you need is with the administrative secretary. So principal secretary, whoever's the main secretary in the main office, that is the person that knows everything that's going on in the school. So if there's anything you might need, that is the best person to get a relationship built with. I know, I mean, I already had with all these people, my relationships have been built for 5 years with them before I started with JAG, but I talk to the administrative secretary, if not every day, every other day. Walk down the office and we have a little chat. And front office receptionist, same way, because that's where your guest speakers are going to come in. They need to know what JAG is and understand what we do, and you need a good relationship with them. And I'm sure there's more people than who are on this list, but these are the people, for what I've done this past year, these are the key people that I've talked with. The head custodian, second shift custodian lead, and we'll talk about more of them when we start talking about projects. All the department chairs, department teachers, I mean, everybody, but department chairs, especially your own department. I'm in the business department at Greenfield Central, and so his classroom is right across the hall from mine, so we talk all the time. Resource director, it's very important with us having a lot of students with IEPs or 504s, that you need to get to know your resource director really well, if not all the resource teachers. Guidance counselors. Again, I know some people, there's a few people we have issues with at times. Guidance counselors are on that list, especially when it comes to scheduling. But we have 4 guidance counselors. You need to make sure at least one of them is on your side, that you have a really good relationship with, even though you need to get to know all of them. Technology director and all the tech staff. If you have issues in your room with, being able to show something or do anything with tech, then that's who you got to know. Schools have different ways of doing, whatever different systems. So some use Canvas, some use PowerSchool, some use some other systems. Make sure you get to know the person in the school that knows that system inside and out, because that way, if you have questions, you know who to go to. Whatever individual might manage the school's master calendar, that's somebody to get to know, because you're going to schedule different events that are going on. You're going to do if you do any kind of fundraisers or just need certain rooms, auditorium for speeches or anything, that you need to get to know that person. An auditorium director or whoever is running the auditorium, again, if you're using that area, that's a person you need to know, so you can find out the information you need to know. Athletic director, athletic secretary. We use the gymnasium for an event, so I had to go through athletic director. So you need to know those people. And then with the community, the big one, the first one that I went to, again, I had a background in Boys and Girls Club, so I was in the community a lot. I knew most of the people, so it made it a little easier for me. But you want to find your local JAG national sponsors. We have Amazon and Elwood Staffing, and they're national JAG sponsors. So that's who I went to first to start relationships, to get those built for JAG locally, and get them as guest speakers, sites for tours, interviewers. That's who I started with. And then worked with Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, government officials, the department heads, bank personnel. We do a personal finance section. So, I got the banks involved. I mean, as many local businesses and managers in town that you can. I spend time each week going out and meeting with them, different people, talking about JAG. I mean, my schedule is we're on a block schedule. So I have 2 blocks of kids with a day and then 2 blocks without them. So 1 out of every couple of days, I'll go have a meeting with somebody and talk to them about JAG and try to get them involved. So now to Classroom and Career Association. And these are some different things. This is probably where we'll spend most of the time talking about some different things. And as we go through this, if you got questions, please, feel free to ask them at the end, and then we'll discuss whatever everybody wants to. You'll get a packet that has this presentation and some of the forms that you'll see in it on the slides. And again, these are things that I created that helped me out. We'll talk about the completion of the application process, grading, lesson plans, classroom design, recruitment, partnerships, and a little bit on marketing. Here's the banner that I had made that we use when we walk in the parade or we do different events. That's the banner that I hang up. So it's got our little high school JAG logo. And so that's something that we did. So the application process is not fun. If you haven't been through it, this is one of those things you're not going to enjoy because it's just a lot of work. Again, it's a long process to get through this thing. There's a lot of papers that the kids have to fill out, that parents have to sign off on, a lot of information you got to dig up. So a little bit of it is you're going to have to get parent signatures. You're going to have to get a copy of Social Security card. You're going to have to get a copy of birth certificates. So I did a letter to parents because the one thing that I knew from the past, but also came up early, was a lot of the parents don't want to give their kid's Social Security number or copy of the card to you. So I made a letter and gave it to all the parents explaining what the process was, why we needed it, why we had the application. And I believe I have a copy of that letter in the packet. So you can do it 2 different ways. You can break it into small parts, do it some different days throughout the week. Or you can do it all at one time with the kids and try to get all that knocked out. With the birth certificates and some Social Security cards, you can go to your guidance department, and in their student files, they usually have copies of the birth certificates. Some of them will have actual copies of Social Security cards. So I did this last week. I went and pulled every student I'm going to have this coming year and made copies of their birth certificate. And if the Social Security was in there, I made copies of that. So I'm only missing right now, I think 8 out of 45 birth certificates. So that's a big help. You get a jump start on that. You don't have to worry about that. That's one thing less you got to deal with. We use Power School. So for anybody 17 and under, you can use Power School as an ID. So because it usually has their photo on it. So I copy off their schedule for the fall semester, and it'll have their picture on it. And that's what I use for the kids as far as a second ID for the 17 and under. Now, if they're age 18, you have to have a state ID. So that's a license, permit, or just a regular state ID card. That one I found out last year is a little tougher. I had a couple students that didn't have driver's licenses, didn't have permits. So I had to contact parents and let them know that they need to go to the license branch and get a state ID. Sometimes for one student that took a couple of weeks. So you got to get a jump start on that, because that's something that's going to take time. And again, there's only 6 or 7 sheets that the parents actually need to sign off on. So that's all I sent home. I put it in an envelope and sent that home with the letter and had the parents sign those sheets. I didn't send the whole packet because I didn't want the whole packet out of my hands. And when you do that, you do not want them to date the forms. You just want them to sign it. So make sure that you make that clear. I put sticky notes on every page saying sign only, do not date. Little extra work, but sometimes they won't read the letter, so the sticky note on each page helps. And then I had started recruiting for the kids for next year. And so I had them do their profile and the selection criteria when I recruited them. That way, that gave me a jump start on getting these forms done for next year. Again, if you have not completed it, and it does take a while, you have to enter all this information in ICC. You have to scan the documents, upload them. So you got to put it in ICC, and again, you got to put it in JAGForce. So as far as time consuming, this application in the beginning of the school year is the most time consuming thing you have. It's got to be done. It's not fun, but it does take time. Grading. Again, I'm not a teacher by trade, so this is it was a little different to start with, and everybody has their own system of doing it. I started out like most people, big project, you got 100 points, quiz, 20 points, all that kind of stuff. And I started going through the first 9 weeks, and I found out that was not going to work for me. A lot of the kids that were not doing anything and failing. Some of the kids were trying, but not doing enough to pass. And after doing a few different bigger projects and more points, they were not going to catch up. If they got 40s on it, they were not going to catch up enough to actually pass the class at the end. So I totally scrapped what I did and created a new system. I'll get to that on the next slide. This is how I break down my categories for grades: 25% on career association, 20% projects. And actually assignments is 15%. I'm not sure why I put 20 there, but assignments is 15%. Participation and attendance are both 15% because it's very important that they show up and that they actually participate. And then we're mandated to do the final and midterm. I do not give a test. So they do binder projects for my finals. And I'll explain that here in a bit. And again, this is on the syllabus that you guys will get a copy of if you want to download the packet. So everything I do is 6 points max. This is my scale. We use Power School. So on paper, when I give it back to the kids, you see the scale, it's a 0 to 6. In Power School, again, it has to translate a little different on the score to make it actually work in the system. I do A+, and then I just go A, B, C, D, and then you'll see I have 2 Fs. That's on purpose. The students that attempt to work, but just don't do enough to actually pass, get a 3. Or, on paper, they'll get a 1. In Power School, it's a 3. The students that just don't attempt it and don't do anything, they get a 0, and then they get a 0 in Power School. So this gives the kids that are at least attempting but not passing a much higher opportunity to actually pass the course if their grades get a little bit better. Again, you're saying they only are 0.9 behind, on Power School. So it's a little different, but it has worked out very well for me this past year. The other thing I do, on day 1, I told the kids, you're going to treat JAG like a job, not a class. That's what we do is job readiness, on a lot of this. So again, they get 6 points every day. That's what they start with. All they can do is lose it. So 3 points on participation, 3 points on attendance. If they're on their phone, and we're not using phones for project or for assignment that day, then they're going to lose a point because they'd be getting written up at work because a lot of jobs don't want them using their phones. If they're not just being involved and participating in our activities that day, they lose a point. If they have a poor attitude, they're going to lose a point. Again, these are things that it's possible that you could get written up for at work. If you're tardy, you lose a point, you'd be written up. And we call it AUV at Greenfield if someone doesn't call in, a parent doesn't call in, or a student doesn't call in saying they're not going to be there. They're going to lose all 6 points because that's work related. That's going to be a no call, no show. So that's how I do this. And it's worked out well to translate this to work, to a job. The kids get to understand that, these are important items. Lesson plans. Again, we're on a block schedule, so we have blue gold days there. So it's every other day. I come up with a master calendar, which you see on the top there. It's colorful. That's for that one you see is the fall semester. And then I have another one I do for the spring. It lets me know what days or what color. And I do everything. We use Google Classroom. So I plan it out, and this year I'll have 3 JAG 1 classes and 1 JAG 2 class. So I have 1 JAG 1 classroom on Google Classroom. And so all 3 classes kids are listed there because we do the same thing in all 3 classes. So they'll be like day 1 will be for the blue day and the gold day for JAG 1. So I list at one time, this is what we're doing. This is the information you need. So that way, if kid's absent, after a few weeks, you get somebody sick, then I can say, okay, well, you need to go back on Google Classroom and check day number 5. You need to finish that assignment, or, so that way they can go back in the stream, see what's there, what they need to do. And then I have a 9-week calendar that actually gives them a little bit better idea of what we're actually going to do those days. You'll have a copy of this in that packet as well. So it lists out kind of what we're doing. The first 9 weeks, we focus on the competencies, the introduction of all of them. So with that, the first 9 weeks are the only time I do journals. So they'll do a 10-minute journal. I'll have a quick question that I ask them for the block after the competencies. That way I know they understood the competency, or if I think nobody did, then I need to go back and we need to talk about it a little bit more. Second, third 9 weeks, we work on level 2. Level 3 kind of gets dispersed throughout second semester with what we're doing. We do icebreakers in the first 9 weeks. I do things the first 2 weeks with them, and then it's their project after that. I use a Google form to have the kids fill out. They have to tell me about what their icebreaker is. Because, if you didn't do that, how some kids are, they do an icebreaker that had nothing to do with anything we need them to talk about or inappropriate or whatever. So I do the Google form so I can approve what they were going to do. Again, this gets them to do some of the speaking. They're going to lead the group. They're going to talk to the class. So it's the starting of the interaction for that with them, as far as being the leader of the class for that time period. We'll talk about the college application process. College Go week, we get on, we do some college applications. We go through that process. And then early to mid-September, we start working on FAFSA. And I do that early then, just so it gives them time to get their FSA IDs back. And then I offer to meet with the parent and the student to actually go through the entire process with them and do it with them in the evening or after school sometime if the parent wants to do that. So I offer that to them. And I've done the FAFSA 6 times now. My daughter did it, we did it 4 times. I've done it twice with my brother and nephew. So that's just part of it. Q2, we start working on CDC. The chapter brochure, I have everybody do. I kind of split that up by block. Each block works together to create their own brochure, and then the Career Association officers take the 4 and kind of combine that into one. Social media, I have a vice president of marketing that works with me on posts for Facebook and Instagram. That's what we use. So I may expand that a little bit to some other officers this year, but so we participate in the social media. The other 3 items that we have everybody do is the employability skills, the career presentation, and creative solutions. So those are class projects everybody does because we're all doing employability skills anyway. We're all doing career presentations. And then, just for a fun activity, we all do the creative solutions. And then with that, the best one will represent us for the CDC. Everything else, all the other different competitions are kind of open to whoever might be interested in doing them. If I don't get anybody that volunteers, then I go through and nominate a few people to do some of those. Midterms and finals, again, with the finals, we do a binder project. The kids keep a binder on the counter and they will maintain that with all their career presentation, copies of their slides, their grade on the rubric. They'll put their cover letter, resume, reference sheet, and then the interviewer notes. They'll put all that in there. We do that once every 9 weeks, at least with the employability skills. So they go through that process 4 times. So they keep all those in. Speaker notes, field trip notes, all that go in there. Anything that would be pertinent to them for the future, that's what we keep in there. And I have a list of that stuff. The only thing that changes is in the fall semester for midterm. Since we really haven't done a ton of that stuff at that point, what we do is watch Pursuit of Happiness, the movie, and the kids will get a sheet that lists all the competencies. Now, what they have to do while they watch the movie is go through and they got to check all the competencies that they witness in the movie. So this way I can see if they actually recognize them. So they're doing that and they're making notes on kind of where in the movie they saw it. Because the movie covers about 33, 34 of the 37 competencies. So it's a good movie for that. So now you got in-class versus out-of-class activities as far as career association parts for this mainly. We do a lot of career association things in class, and then we have some things that are outside of the class as far as the actual activities they participate in. I this past year, I gave the kids the option, do you want to do it in class? Do you want to make a big ceremony out of it? And to my surprise, they decided they wanted to make it an event. So that's what we did. With we did, it lasted about an hour. We did it in the auditorium. All the parents were invited. I think I spoke for maybe 5 minutes. Other than that, my officers did all the work. They did all the speaking outside of having a guest speaker, which was Christine by video this last time. So it went really well. So I've scheduled a date for it to be in the auditorium again this year in September, late September. And that is only if the kids decide they don't want to do it in class, because I'll give them the option again. This is their event, so I'm giving them option of what they want to do. For the project-based learning activity, we did one major one this year, and we hosted a community job fair. So you see a couple of the documents on here. They discussed and planned the event throughout the third quarter. We held it in April. It went 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock. It was open to juniors and seniors at the school the entire school day. Teachers would let them out of class to come to this. And then from 3:30 to 7, we opened up to community. We had 58 exhibitors between businesses, nonprofits, colleges, trades, military. We had 335 students attend and walk through. We had 2 food trucks. We had the choir sing. We had door prizes that our exhibitors donated. Instead of charging them a fee to actually be there, we asked them for a donation of a door prize. And for the students to be eligible for the door prize, we had a sheet that they had to complete, that they actually went around and talked to at least 8 businesses and 1 school and 1 military, 1 military. So that way everybody was getting hit with that. Went out and got sponsorships, and I had 9 sponsors and I raised $2,900 for that. And then I had some in-kind partners that would help with other things, with advertising or, different areas there. I did not include any of these in the packet, but if anybody's interested in that, you'll have my contact information at the end. So you are more than welcome to send me an email and I'll forward you everything I got. This one on the top is what we used for the public to promote it in the public. I had a ton of copies at banks and different locations. The one on the bottom was what we used the day of. So students and the community would know what business or, what exhibitors was at what table. And it listed all our sponsors and partners on it. And then on the back of it was actually the diagram of the gym where tables were. As far as a service learning project, the kids decided they wanted to help out our custodians. We were short-staffed in the second shift, and they wanted to help them out and clean classrooms. So that's what they did. So we called it Project Cleans, Comprehensive Learning Experience and Activating Needed Services. In the classroom, we had a lot of discussions on how the school system hires, what their hiring policies were, how they recruited people, what kind of job sites did they use. We talked about different maintenance issues throughout the facilities and how custodial is related to that. Outside of class, again, the kids volunteered. This is where they did their service hours. 3:30 to 5:30 Monday to Thursday after school. They assisted by vacuuming carpets, cleaning tables, mopping floors, anything within the classrooms, that emptying trash. Nothing hard labor wise. It was just something to help, that because they did not see first semester things were not getting cleaned in classrooms. So by the end of and they could schedule themselves. There was a calendar up on the board, and they could come write their time in, write their name in whatever time frame they wanted to do. Some of them did it. They had to do at least 6 days to get their hours in. So some of them signed up for 6 straight days. Some of them signed up for once every Monday for 6 weeks. Some of them were pretty sporadic, but they got it in. So we end up with 142.25 service hours just for Project Cleans. And then we had a lot of kids, volunteered at the local shelters or, at church, doing different things. So you see, we had 248 hours just in the community. So a total of 390 hours that the kids volunteered last year. And I have a form that is in the packet that the kids have to fill out and have signed off on to actually prove that they did the volunteering that they say they did. So that's there for you. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do career association. You can do a career association per class, or you can do it for the entire roster, which is what I do. I did about 80% of things in class, 20% was out of class. We discuss and work on things, basically every week. We're talking about things for the career association. And then the officers kind of decide what direction they want to go once they get the input from all the kids in the blocks. So we participated in a lot of different school activities. We did the homecoming parade. We did trick or treat for Riley. There's a lot of special weeks that different groups do that we participate, do something with. With officers, we did officer elections. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do the officers and what positions you want to have. This last year, I had 5 different positions. And it also depends how many students you have that are actually interested in being leaders within that group. Then, like first semester, we met every Monday after school for sometimes it was a half hour, sometimes it was an hour. Second semester, it actually worked out where I had one block where all my officers had a study hall basically, and I pulled them out of study hall either the Monday or the Tuesday, and that's when we met. So that made it a lot easier for me because I didn't have to stay after school for those meetings then. But I had them captive and I had them for an hour and a half so that we got some work done then. Multiplying good with students in action and Jefferson Awards. You can make students in action a part of the career association. We did that this past year. Next year, our career association will be a part of it, but I am making Students in Action a completely different group club for the school. That way I open it up to more people, more kids, and possibly do some more activities. Jefferson Awards, we created a Google form and sent it out to everybody in the school corporation and community leaders and asking them to nominate people for different categories, different awards. And then the career association would decide who they would award. And don't forget, when you do that, you got the year-end reports you have to do for Multiplying Good. So just keep that in mind. And we did a lot of celebrations throughout the year, once the kids got some things done. We had a Christmas party in class, played games, watched Christmas movies. We had pizza parties once we finished the projects. After school one day, we went and did bowling and pizza for the kids that did the volunteering with our service learning project. And then we had graduation parties at the end, the last couple of weeks of school for the seniors, and got all their things taken care of. You'll see a picture on top there. That's one of the leadership activities with Multiplying Good, and the other photo with the notes on the bottom was a picture of the students actually awarding the honor to one of our teachers. And then that got put in the parent newsletter that goes out, all the parents in the school. So lesson plans with school events. Again, it's beneficial to participate in different events that the school does. There's some blocks where, there's different things going on at school and they need help with either setup or tear down. If we have time, we go out and help the custodians do that. I assist with the senior brunch because I know all my seniors I have will be there. So I assist with that. And then, attend the graduation to support the graduating seniors. Classroom design, how you set up your classroom. There's the 3 different ways that I am doing it. The first 9 weeks, I use the one on the top where it's the U shape, so the C, whatever, because I am doing more discussion where I'm leading the group more during the first 9 weeks because of talking about the competencies. Then after that, the second, third, and fourth 9 weeks, I will switch to one of the other two on the bottom because we do more group projects, group work. So either one of those is how I set it up, and depends on how my numbers, which way I go. I will probably go with the 3 groups this year. Last year, when we still had COVID going on, then I did the other 2 because I tried it in 3, but then you have 3 out of the 4 out. You'd have to move the one kid from one group to another group. So I just end up with the 2 bigger groups last time. We use the counter, which is on the left side there. That's where kids keep all their binders. I have a 2-drawer file cabinet in the room where every kid has a file. If we go through things, then they put their information in their file folder and have it for the next block. So I know they actually have it, and I don't have to give out more copies of things. Okay, let's see. So marketing. Again, marketing is important. Most of your community probably does not know what JAG is. And actually, to be honest, a lot of people in the school does not know what JAG is. So it helps to talk with teachers, get them the information, talk to them about what JAG is. Again, if you're not teaching one block, you have 15 minutes and another teacher has prep or something, go over, talk to him about JAG, what you're doing. It does help, especially if you need to get some information or anything from them on a student or anything else. It does help for them to understand what the program is. I create a marketing plan, so I kind of have something to go by on how we use Facebook and Instagram. We don't use Twitter. We have access to it. We have an account set up, but we didn't use it this last year. Advertising local papers, local other organizations, Kiwanis, Rotary, go be a guest speaker. Talk about JAG, especially with those are organizations that have a lot of business people in them. So if you're talking about it there, you're explaining it one time to a bunch of people and not have to go do all these individual meetings all the time. But you still want to do that. At least they would have a head start on understanding a little bit about JAG. The community job fair picture at the top is the banner. I had 10 banners made for our job fair and that I put around town on our main roads. Those were 4x8 in size. We have 4 local high schools in our county, each one had that they placed in their cafeteria. And then this last one here that was in the paper, we gave out a Courage Award to a JAG student from a couple of years ago that had cancer. We knew that at some point he was going to pass on, and we wanted to make sure that he got recognized for the courage he has shown through the process of his cancer. And actually, last year, we ended up losing 3 JAG members from the previous year that all passed away for different reasons, which is kind of an odd thing to have happen. But again, get out in the community as much as you can, let people know what JAG is. That's part of what we need to do. Recruitment in the school, as far as your students for the next year, like this past year, I started in December and January. That's when I started doing my recruitment. And to be honest with you, I had no idea who most of the sophomores were this past year. So I had to rely on other people to help me with that. My committee structure, this is who I have on my committee. On the bottom, I have one of the assistant principals. I have a business department chair, resource director, guidance counselor. I had all the 10th grade English teachers because they all have every one of those sophomores. And again, with not knowing who they were, that was a big plus for me to find out information about those kids. I had the Elwood staffing branch manager as part of my committee. And then this year, when we start, I'm going to add another teacher. I'm going to add somebody from a secondary education, I guess post-secondary education. I'm going to add one of the military reps, and I'm going to add a bank rep onto my committee just to get more information. Again, these outside people will probably not have much information on the students that we'll be recruiting, but it's another way to get them involved. And I try to get outside involvement as much as possible. And it makes it easier when you need guest speakers or different events going on to get help. The more you're out in the community, the better chances you're going to have to get sponsor money, to get partners for different things. So that's where we're at there. Again, we did flyers in the school for recruitment. That's on the top, the blue and red colored one. Use your current classes to actually help you recruit kids. They know a lot of those freshmen and sophomores that might be coming up that need JAG. Again, you're going to take recommendations from all the teachers, your resource guidance. Guidance will, in some situations, they're going to push a ton of kids on you that need box 2. So sometimes you got to be careful on what guidance pushes. But definitely talk to the resource director and resource teachers. That's where you're going to, again, get a lot of those IEPs and 504 students. And you can do call out meetings. I did one of those this past year. And you can come up with other ways of doing it. So I create an original roster of students that I talk to that I would like to be having JAG the next year. And then, of course, throughout scheduling, you do that before guidance counselors start scheduling everybody. You give them a list of who you want. Sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the kids have other things. I know some of our students go to Warren Central for some activities, classes. And so it's kind of, do they pick JAG or do they pick Warren Central? So you may lose out on a few of those kind of students. In the end, there's the bottom 2 are the forms that I have right now that I have my kids listed on that I will have next year. I had 46, and then one kid actually transferred to another school, so I'll have 45. At this point, by the time school starts and class starts within the first couple of weeks, I would assume I'll probably lose 1 or 2 more. So I start collecting as much information on them as I can. Again, I've already got copies of their birth certificates. I've got some of their social security cards. I've got their birth dates. I pull off what I can on PowerSchool and put it on this form just to have all that information. And it's a big jump start when the school starts. Again, those will all have, I won't have my kids listed, but you'll have copies of these. And again, if you want to email me, I can send the documents to you that you can actually utilize and change however you want to do your own. But again, with this one up here that you give counselors, we have 4 counselors. You see it's in different colors. So I did a different color for each counselor because they all have a quarter of the alphabet. So that way they could go straight to the kids they have. And that's the ones I wanted in classes next year. That one's that. I mean, it's kind of with follow-up, and you guys have all been through this now, I would assume. You have the follow-up information sheet that you give the seniors to fill out. I do this the last couple of weeks of school, and we talked about it every class a little bit, how this was going to work. And I told them I had high expectations of them actually contacting me back since I did have them in class. Now, when the group that we inherit, that we all had this last time, it's a little tougher if you don't know them. I knew majority of them from being at Greenfield before, but there were still a few that I had to try to work with. And there's one that I could never get a hold of for whatever reason. Nobody knows where he is, or That's just how it worked out. So the first week of the month, make your first attempt. And then you just go on from there for the ones that don't contact you back. In June, you go to graduation, you go to a lot of open houses. That's probably the worst thing about having seniors is you get invited to all the open houses. I think I did 12 of those this time. July or August is depending on when we get the checks. I'm having the checks for me to pick up at work one, so I can actually meet with the kids and give them their checks. Now the kids that are finished with follow-up, those will be mailed out, but I wanted those in my hands so I know that they were actually going out. So I'll send those out, but everybody else that I had last year, I will meet in person and give them their check. That'll be my July or August meeting with them. You go with what they preferred. Almost all the kids last year wanted, and this year as well, will want just to go by text. So my first contact is text, and then some of them I'll call and talk to at a different point in the month. But December and May, I use a Google form for contact. I'll text them, let them know to check it because it's coming. And that way I ask a bunch of questions, and it's easier for them to type in their answers, and then I have a copy of it. Again, January to April is just how they prefer to be contacted. And the bottom sheet is, again, the form I use to track when I contact them and their phone numbers, their emails, all that kind of stuff. So we will just open this up for discussion for a few minutes. And again, if there's anything, there's a packet that you are more than welcome to have. And if you want, those are all in PDFs, but if you want them in Word or on Google, then I can set that up and get that to you. So that's not an issue. And then there's my contact info. So again, this presentation is actually in the packet. So you'll have all my contact info in case you want to ask me anything or want copies of something I did. And so that is that. So anybody have questions?
I did send the packet in the chat earlier, but that should also be available when Christine and everyone puts it on Jack Genius. So if you guys want to look at that now, it is available.
And I didn't get all the forms on there, but if there's anything you would like, I'd be more than happy to share it. Just like what we did in Boys and Girls Clubs, you borrow still and everything, so you don't have to recreate. It's just a lot easier. When I started, I borrowed, I got a lot of things from a couple of the other local JAG specialists, and kind of some of them I used, some of them I twisted and tweaked and to fit what I do better. But again, this is where you're back to like the first question I kind of said, think about what you did in the past and your life experiences, and that transfers to this. So when we talk to kids about the job skills and job etiquette and all that, hiring and firing, and being a director at the club, I hired and fired a lot of people. So I have that firsthand knowledge that I can talk to the kids about why I fired people, why I hired people, what I looked for. So that was one of the advantages of my past. So anybody have any questions or anything you want to talk about? Everybody's just ready to be done today? Okay, well, again, my info is on the packet or in that PowerPoint, so it's in the packet. If you want to contact me for anything, please feel free to do so, and I'll be happy to talk to you or get you whatever information you want. Again, this is just the way I did it this past year, and that's not everything in it, but I tried to cover as many areas as I thought I had issues with, when I started. So.
Thank you, Darren.
You're welcome.
And that concludes our session today. So we're really looking forward to seeing you all in person next Wednesday, the 29th at the Indiana Government Center for our last day of training. But I hope you all have a great night and see you next week.